I want to speak about at some point how your ADHD has actually helped you.
Okay.
But let's kick off. Tell me about your week. I think we'll get to the topics, but let's
Yeah. Okay. This week, I've been working on NFT arbitrage bots. So we've been making good money, saying like 20, 30K in a week arbitraging NFTs.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how much I want to say this on thing, but yeah,
we can
arbitraging
cover
NFTs.
this.
What we're doing is we are looking, any sort of arbitrage trade is where you find something that is mispriced or a discrepancy in prices. So it will be an NFT will be listed on one exchange for a price, and then on another exchange it's listed for a lower price, so you can buy it for a lower price.
Yeah.
And what you do is you go and buy it where it's low, you sell high, you make money. There's quite a few people doing this. But the price discrepancy still exists. In order to do it, you need to be very, very quick. So as soon as one of the exchanges will move the price, you'll then put out an offer on another trade, on another exchange, in order to then buy the NFT. I've been tweaking this to get as fast as possible, so I can beat the other people and make my trades put the trades in the order book a lot quicker. I've got it down to sub 1 millisecond. It's funny, I was actually telling my girlfriend Diana the other day, I was like, I've got the trades to under a millisecond. Like, she just doesn't understand it. But I can put like 100 trades in a few seconds. So hopefully when I get back and I set it up, I should be the fastest person on OpenSea bidding for NFTs.
So that sounds like infinite money to me. I mean, sounds like you can just turn that button on and
it isn't, because it depends on how many arbitrage opportunities are out there, and obviously as the price discrepancies are bigger, more people come in or people get faster. Right now, the next speed up for me is to actually co-locate the code, so it's in San Francisco. I'm going to see if I can get hosted in the same data center as OpenSea, so that way the round trip time is tiny, and I'll definitely be the fastest.
That's very interesting. So how do you find out what data center that they're hosting their things in?
Oh, that's pretty easy. You can do like a DNS lookup on the domain name, and it'll come to like some Cloudflare router, and then you can use traceroute to see all of the different hops in the line from your computer, all the different network hops to them. And then once you know where that is, you can then do like a IP lookup, different services, and it'll show you that it's in San Francisco. Finding the exact data center is a little bit of like seeing where Cloudflare hosts their servers and so on, but with IP lookup, you can get pretty close. There's
levels to this game, man.
How about yourself? How's your week?
Doing very well.
How's your week been, Adam?
My week started off very well. Training Brazilian jiu-jitsu. It's my new sport.
Yeah.
You notice this mark on my neck. So.
Oh yeah, what is that from?
You might wonder where this mark came from. I'd love to say it was a love bite. I've had a few of those during my life, but this is actually from training Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
So I've done 4 or 5 classes now. I went to my 5th class on Tuesday and was rolling with my partner. What you do is you spend about 30 to 40 minutes learning a new submission move. So it might be armbar and an armbar defense. And then the last 20 minutes is free rolling, like sparring with various partners. And that gets very intense. Obviously, I'm a beginner rolling with someone more experienced, and he had me in a neck crank, which is
sounds painful.
It's a crazy uncomfortable position to be in. It's like you feel like your head is being popped off your neck or popped off from your body. I should have tapped. I should have, submitted right there. But I tried escaping it and ended up doing my neck in. So I've had to take a week off from training now.
So out of curiosity, how does one escape a neck crank?
That's a good question. I'm not entirely sure yet myself. I think something called a bridge, which is where you kind of flip your opponent's body into the air over yours. And then there's a whole lot of twisting and wriggling until you're in a safer position.
But you did no submission. I like it. Not giving up.
I tried not giving up until it felt like my head was coming off. And you have to tap at some point. But I learned a lesson. Don't try and hold out when it comes to necks, knees, and shoulders.
Okay.
Because I did my reading on some forums in a few days after that because I couldn't train, and I was trying to find out how do you actually escape this ridiculous position. And everybody says the same thing. If it's neck, if it's shoulder, if it's knee, just let it go. Let the ego move out the way.
So then as a competitor, are those the things that you should be training more, like those sort of holds?
Definitely, yeah. Those are the kind of positions where you don't want to get caught in that position in a competition. And I'm going to prioritize learning my escapes. So in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, there's 5 belts. You have white belt, blue belt, purple, brown, and then black. And they say that the first 3 belts, white, blue, purple, are just learning defense.
Yeah.
It's just like escaping positions that a black belt or a brown belt can put you in. And you only learn attack. They say you only learn attack once you get up to brown belt and black belt, which is very interesting.
So how long does it actually take for somebody to get to black belt, or to get to the point where they're learning to attack?
It's a great question. As far as I know, most black belts get their belt in 10 to 15 years.
Oh, wow. So a long time.
Those guys are very dedicated.
Yeah.
And most of them will go on to become teachers. That's something I really like about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is they don't give you your belt unless you're serious. You have to earn it. I'm going to take a drink.
Yeah.
To give you a really good example, so Joe Rogan, he started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu back in 1996. And then he helped Eddie Bravo, his friend, launch 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, which is now one of the biggest jiu-jitsu gyms in the world. They have loads of centers everywhere. Eddie Bravo, even though Joe Rogan was funding the gym and provided all the equipment and everything and helped him launch his business, Eddie Bravo made Joe Rogan wait about 8 years to go from brown belt to black belt. He made him earn that black belt. So he didn't get it through fame or through the money. He made him work for it. And I think it took Joe Rogan about 20 years in total to go from white belt to black belt.
Oh, wow. And for the actual, like, is there a test or something that you need to do, like there is in karate, to go to the next belt?
Yeah, usually some gyms do tests. They'll put you through like a crucible where you have to survive a load of different submissions and positions from different people in the gym. Although if you watch MMA, if you watch UFC, I've seen some fighters win a UFC fight and their jiu-jitsu coach will go up into the octagon and hand them their black belt because their performance was so strong. Yeah. And they used their jiu-jitsu to such a high level.
So are we saying then that not all UFC fighters are black belts in BJJ?
They're not. Not all of them. A lot of them are, because in order to even survive in the octagon these days, you have to have some jiu-jitsu. You have to have some grappling and jiu-jitsu. A lot of these guys are black belts though, and you'll see 2 black belts go against each other, and it's interesting to see because sometimes they want to grapple because that's what they know best.
Yeah.
Sometimes they think, I'm just going to strike this guy because he doesn't know striking, and then you see some interesting matchups right there.
So what you're saying is like black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is so hard to get, so difficult thing to attain. There are professional fighters that are there making money doing it that don't have the black belt.
That's true.
Okay, wow.
That's
I
true.
did not know that.
The things that a black belt can do to you is insane. I mean, I'm what, 80 kilos, 6'2".
Yeah.
A black belt could fold me in half effortlessly with 0 application of force. And here's the thing: when you see a black belt spar and roll, they're like I don't want to say a worm, but they're kind of like a worm. They can just wriggle themselves in and out of any situation and use minimal force to fold you up. I mean, my friend, he was training at a gym. It was mostly purple belts and brown belts. Apparently, this young chick comes in. She was like weighing 60 kilos or something.
Yeah.
And she sparred with every guy there, and within 30 seconds, she folded them up like a pretzel. They were tapping. They were all tapping, you know.
Wow.
So that's the power of experience in jiu-jitsu. It's amazing.
And in jiu-jitsu, as a beginner, what are the things that people should focus on most? Like if they're getting into it, what would you recommend?
That's a great question. So what I'm learning is that escapes are important. Escaping dangerous situations and not just focusing on submitting the other guy. Tapping early in dangerous positions like the neck, like the shoulder. What else is important? Just be humble, you know. I come from a martial arts background. I've been doing Muay Thai for 3 years.
Okay.
But you see a lot of guys, or I've heard of a lot of guys going into a gym with an ego. And you can't have an ego in jiu-jitsu because those are the guys that won't tap. And those are the guys that get pissed off if they lose, you know. And the fact is, when you're rolling and sparring, you're going to go against 5, 6, 7 different partners. So you're going to lose. You're going to win some. and there's no place for dickheads. And that's something I really like about the BJJ community, is it weeds out dickheads. Those guys don't last long.
They're very humbling.
It's very humbling. It's very humbling. And the coaches don't put up with it.
Yeah.
Because if someone comes and they're too aggressive, you know, you see it in a Muay Thai gym, the coach will just see that guy and have a word with him and say, look, why are you punching at full power when your partner's going 10%?
Yeah.
You're here to learn and work on your speed, not to knock each other out. It's not a boxing gym. And those guys will either take on board that advice and like taper it, tone it down a bit, or they won't, and they'll keep throwing haymakers and they'll get kicked out the gym. They'll get told to leave because you can't be here and they can't.
Wow, that's really interesting.
That's it, man. No one will train with them. No one will train with them.
That's crazy. So I guess we might have some guys that want to, sit at home. Summer's coming up. Want to go to the beach, and they're like, okay, it's time to get fit. I want to look jacked. I want to look lean. I want to look good on the beach. And maybe they're thinking, maybe I should go into lifting, bodybuilding. Maybe I should go into Brazilian jiu-jitsu or some sort of martial arts.
Yep.
How can they decide what they want to do?
That's a great question. That's funny that you asked that, because I didn't know if Brazilian jiu-jitsu would help my muscles, but I finished a session and the traps are growing. The triceps feel sore, the biceps feel sore from trying to get an armbar.
Yeah.
So you do notice a fullness to your muscles after, a month of training Brazilian jiu-jitsu, which is crazy fast results. What training program am I on right now? It's a combination of weights and BJJ. So like weights twice a week and BJJ twice a week.
Okay.
And that feels really good.
So if somebody wanted to get jacked and lean for the beach, what would you recommend?
I would say to follow my program, BJJ and weights.
Okay, do both.
BJJ and weights. But I've also gotten jacked off pure weights.
Yeah.
So what would you say?
No, I think I'm quite biased here. So I used to do powerlifting, now I do bodybuilding. I think if you want to gain size, I mean, even if you're already strong as a powerlifter, if you want to gain size, bodybuilding is the way to go. And I think most people end up killing it by doing too much. So you see people start and they want to go to the gym 5 or 6 days a week. I currently, on a bulk, when I'm trying to put weight on, I will only go like 4 days a week. And I actually learned that from coaching with 6-time Mr. Olympia, Dorian Yates. Before him, I'd been training for about 7 years, worked with a number of different coaches. I had a coach in America, a powerlifting coach here in London. And I realized through all of that training, I was just doing too much volume at not high enough intensity. What that meant was I was just killing it, just doing set after set, thinking, more is better, more is better. If I do more, I'm going to get bigger muscles. And the fact is it's not like that. In order to gain muscle, you really want to stress the muscle, but you want to stress it with like as little volume as possible.
Right.
So I'll do one set to complete failure and then move on to the next exercise. And I do that 4 days a week. Rest is really, really important. But yeah, to go back to the question, I'd say if your only aim is to get really jacked, really lean, bodybuilding is the way to go. But if you find that it's hard to stick to that, or you enjoy sports more, or you want to build your cardio, then I would say look into other things, because you're not going to get great at cardio doing bodybuilding.
Right.
In fact, my coaches have told me on a bulk we're going to do as little cardio as possible. I'm going to do a little bit, like once a week, high intensity intervals for like 8 minutes total a week to keep my heart healthy. But otherwise, no cardio, because I want every ounce of energy my body has to go towards building muscle. I don't want it to be, thinking about gaining cardio and everything else. So you can mix bodybuilding cardio, but the bodybuilding won't be as effective.
Oh, you recently told me about a new training technique or a new approach to training that's been having a lot of big results for you. Like, what was that technique?
Yeah, so this was like a game changer for me. So to put it in perspective, I've been training 7.5 years. I've tried everything from like German volume training, 10 sets of 10, to powerlifting programs that got me, really, really strong, to standard bodybuilding splits, the bro split where you do everything once a week, you push-pull legs twice a week. And, while I did see success in lots of different, all those different types of programs, the one that works best for me is the Dorian Yates style high intensity training. And what that is doing very little volume, but doing it at very high intensity. And what does high intensity mean? It means pushing your muscle to failure and then a little bit beyond failure. So to give you an example, before, if I'm training my quads, if I'm doing powerlifting, I might do like eight sets of 3 reps, you know, trying to get power, and I'll do that twice a week. If I'm doing bodybuilding, I'll have my standard leg day where I might do 4 or 5 exercises for quads and then move on to hamstrings. Maybe do that once or twice a week. With high intensity training, I'm only going to do 3 sets of quads per week. So I'm going to do 1 set of leg extensions. This is to pre-exhaust my quads. And I'm going to go to absolute failure. Like, a lot of this is really mental. It's like trying to unlock extra parts of your brain. Like when you think you're exhausted, just try and push one more out. And then I'll have a training partner help me basically lift the weight up and then do a forced rep. So they're just helping me a bit when I can't get any more reps to get an extra couple out to really burn that muscle. So then I'll go from leg extensions. I'll do the same for leg press and hack squat. And then that's it. I've done 3 sets, whereas before I'd do anywhere between 10 and 20 a week. Do 3 sets and then just rest. Like, I could feel my legs growing for the next 3-4 days after that. So
from the sound of that, the first set, you finish the first set, your legs feel smashed.
Yeah.
And then you've got 2 more sets to do.
Yeah.
So are you jumping straight into the second
No,
set?
so this is another misconception. Like, a lot of people think, you know, if I'm in the gym, I want to be using short rest times. I want to be, you know, feeling tired. I'm like, no, take as long as you need to rest, as long as the muscles don't get cold. So like, I never sweat in the gym. Like, the only time I break a sweat in the gym is if the aircon breaks, right? So I'm gonna do my 2 warm up sets. So that's just with a very light weight, just to ease into it. And then I'm gonna do my working set and then take as long as I need before I get into the next exercise. So that could be like usually 2 to 3 minutes for a compound. If it's something that is not lighter, like biceps, maybe 1.5 minutes. I'm never really resting a lot more than 3 minutes. For some sets of deadlifts, I might rest 5 minutes, but I really go by feel. You want to make sure that you're rested enough to make sure that you can really give it your all, because we want to tax the muscle. Like, and when you're lifting, your muscle is either going to go to exhaustion or you're going to get exhausted because of lactic acid buildup. Like, you can't get enough oxygen into the muscle. So we want to make sure that after we've done a heavy set, we're going to let all of that lactic acid get it out so that we can really give it all on the next set.
Yeah, you don't want that lactic acid compromising your next set when it's really the muscle you want to be smashing.
Yeah, exactly. And like, there's 2 ways to look at this. Another way is, all right, well, if we have shorter rest times, I can then fit more volume in when I'm at the gym. But as I said before, those like high volume approaches haven't worked as well for me. And there's also something nice about being able to go into the gym and being in the gym and knowing that you just have 1 set of something. Like, when it comes to me doing leg press, I know I've got 1 set of this and then I'm done. So like, in my head, when I'm doing that set, it's very easy for me to push. Like, I'm pushing and I kind of want to give up, and I'm just thinking, this is the only set I'm going to do all week. I don't have to do this again after. Let's just really go for it. And it just helps you unlock parts of your brain, unlock these extra reps that you didn't even know you had. And like, let's face it, if you're doing 3 sets of something, whether you think it or not, your mind is not going to push completely on that first set, because you know there's 2 more to come, right? Like, I thought I was pretty good with the like mental game, but training like this, I realized so much of it is mental. It's, I'm not going to lie, it's really hard for the first 2 to 4 weeks. Like, everything feels really difficult because you're pushing hard. But then, as most things, you sort of mind adjusts to it. It becomes the normal way of doing things. And you actually look forward to the gym because I just got to do 1 set of everything. Then it's next exercise. I'm not hanging around for ages. Most of my workouts, I'm in and out of the gym in 45 minutes, 4 days a week. So it's not that much at all.
People are busy. That's important.
Yeah.
And so how long have you been doing this?
I've been doing this for about, I'd say like 9 months now. So I did a bulk for about 4 to 5 months. And now I'm like in a place where I'm not cutting, I'm not bulking, I'm letting my muscles relax from doing it for so long. So now I'm going to the gym 3 days a week. I'm not going anywhere near failure. It needs to be said, actually, if you're going to do this, don't do it for more than like 16 weeks at a time, more than 4 months at a time. After you do that, you do need to let your muscles relax. That means you keep going to the gym, but you just don't push to failure. You don't go anywhere near failure. It's just to like let your muscles relax. do that for a month.
Do a few jiu-jitsu classes.
Do a few jiu-jitsu classes, yeah, and then you're ready to come back.
Nice.
I know we spoke about this recently, and you've been incorporating some of this training into your workout program.
I have.
How's that going?
I find it really fun. Because like you said, you're doing one set, so you give it everything. I give it everything in terms of intensity, and then I'll jump on to the next exercise. I've noticed consistent progressive overload as well. My leg extension's gone up massively. Tricep extensions as well. Those are the main lifts that I'm doing it on.
Yeah. So for people who might be new to a lot of serious lifting, what do you mean by progressive overload?
So progressive overload, as in gradually increasing the weight on each workout, either the reps or the weight. But I'm aiming to hit 10 reps for one of those big sets.
Yeah.
So once I hit the 10 reps, then that's when I increase the weight for the next time I'm in the gym. And then I might do 8 reps. And then 9, and then 10, and bang, next week the weight goes up.
Yeah, I think you said something really important there, which is every time you're in the gym, you want to be doing, or at least aiming to do more reps than you did last time, or increasing the weight. I think a lot of people struggle with increasing the weight beyond a certain point. Like I find people hit like psychologically big numbers, like maybe they can squat 100 kilos. And then they'll be able to do that. But then, like, I actually had a friend like this. He'd squatted 100 kilos for 2 years straight. And I'm like, why don't you increase the weight? And he's like, well, I can't do 110. I'm just too much. And I'm like, yeah, they do 1.25 kg plates, right? Put 102.5 in on the bar. And I put it on for him. He did it, right? It's like your brain is not going to realize those small increments. But I think it's really important to keep pushing the weight, because that's where the size and strength gains are going to come. If you stay at the same weight, you do the same thing, your body's going to adapt. You're not going to keep gaining muscle.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know what you mean about the psychological blocker. I also got to a 100 kilo squat, and I was like, okay, well, I don't want to push further than this. There were a couple of reasons. So the idea, firstly, it got me thinking, like, this is just a weight. Like 100 is just a number. What if 100 was actually 110? Would I keep going to 110 or 120? But the second reason, this may sound like an excuse, is I don't want to push my tendons and my joints to do a 140 squat and a 130 squat on a regular basis.
Yeah, I would say on that, a 140 squat is not like going to cause any sort of serious problems, especially for your body weight. It's not until you're regularly doing above like 200 or 220 that I would even worry about it. But I think the other one as well, and I'm not saying you do this, but I know a lot of people do this, they're like, I don't want to push it, for whatever reason. And then you look at them and their squat is either really shaky, or they're bouncing at the bottom, or they're going down really fast. And it just means they don't have control. Like if you think of a weight where you are happy to push, like let's say 20 kg, right? You squat 20 kg, you're happy to put it to 22.5. Why is that? It's because the 20 kg is so light that you can control that weight all the way down, just pause, and then explode up with perfect form, right? And I guess when you look at most people who are like, I don't want to increase the weight, if you look at their form on that weight, it's not that great. So I was talking about high intensity training earlier. I have to say it with the caveat that everything is done really, really, really slowly. So, well, at least the sort of on the squat, the lowering down is done really slowly, and then I'm going to explode up. Yep. So when I'm squatting, it's not about trying to move the weight as fast as possible like I was doing in powerlifting. Put the weight on the bar, and I will go down really slowly for a count of 4, right? And then I'll make sure I'm mentally pausing at the bottom. I don't want to bounce. I don't want to use my stretch reflex. Why? Because I want to train my glutes. I want to train my quads. I don't want to just put it into my tendons and everything else and ligaments and just bounce off.
Right.
So I'm going to pause at the bottom, and then I'm going to explode up. Now, the thing is, if you can get a weight, whatever weight you're on, where you're going down for a count of 4 and then you're exploding up, chances are you can do the weight a bit heavier and go down for a count of 3 or count of 2, right? So doing a heavier weight when you're doing it controlled doesn't feel like a big step versus, for example, when I was powerlifting, I got 210 kg on the bar, going down really quickly, and then I'm trying to explode up. I'm struggling about getting it up. Then my mind's thinking, I don't know if I could do 212, Then you're wondering, whereas if you can control the weight all the way down, you can do a heavier weight, you just might not be able to control it as quick, as fast. Yeah. I'm wondering if that applies to you and some of the weights that you were thinking about.
For me personally, I'd say it doesn't, because
Okay.
I've always focused on being very controlled in my lifts, even if my
Fantastic.
progressive overload was way slower.
Yeah.
I'd rather progress slowly with perfect form.
Yeah.
But I do know what you mean. Friends that I see sometimes friends come in the gym and they're wearing those running trainers with the really soft base.
Yeah.
And then they'll hit their limit of their squats and the knees are doing all this like flapping. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's quite kind of funny to look at. And then you say, buddy, just do it barefoot. Do it barefoot. It feels a lot nicer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was your journey into starting the gym? How did you get into lifting?
So when I was young, I was about 14 years old. I saw a video of Ziz.
Good old Ziz, good
Ziz,
trans
yeah.
fan.
R.I.P. Ziz. But he really inspired me to get into weightlifting.
Yeah.
And so I started doing home workouts, lots of push-ups, lots of abs and all that stuff. And it was when I was finally at university, I actually took up weightlifting properly. And I bulked. I did a crazy bulk that year. I went from like 72 kilos because I was on a deep cut for kickboxing. I went from 72 kilos to 88 kilos.
Wow. 16 kilos.
16 kilos in 3 months. It was weird.
I'm just going to add, all of that probably wasn't muscle.
It definitely wasn't all muscle. That was a chubby bulk.
Yeah.
I would not recommend this to anyone at home. I made a 1,000 calorie protein shake.
Wow. So what goes into 1,000 calorie protein shake?
So I say protein shake. It was 2 scoops of protein. It was a load of milk, loads of oats, and then like 2 tablespoons of peanut butter. It was a lot of fats in this thing. I would not have it nowadays. But I was dirty bulking back then. So I remember I put this all in the blender, blend this thing up. It was a very thick shake. It was like something you might get at Five Guys if you're going for one of them.
Yeah, good old Five Guys milkshake.
They taste bloody good. Not good for a clean bulk though.
Yeah.
And I'd take these to lectures and I'd be sipping on this thing in lectures and I could feel my body was trying to digest this heavy shake. My pulse was in my neck. I could feel my bloody veins popping out my neck and my forearm because my blood pressure was so high. So yeah, if you're a young weightlifter and you're thinking of how to bulk up, don't have a 1,000 calorie.
So it's funny you mentioned that because I've been in a similar place myself with the crazy high calories. What prompted you to do that? Like, why did you decide to drink so many extra calories?
So I followed all the advice I'd seen online, which is that you need to hit major calories, like 3,000, 4,000, 500 calories, 5,000 calories, sorry, over a 24-hour period. And you needed to have constant protein in the digestive system. So yeah, that's where it came from.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that because I've had it before when I was training seriously, when I'm like 5-6 years into training. And like I said, I was doing very high volume. I'm in the gym 6 days a week, like an hour and a half, 2 hours a day. And I wasn't gaining size. I'm like, I'm putting all the effort in. I'm not gaining size. And I'm like, okay, I need to increase the calories. And, for people out there, if you want to do a bulk, I recommend about 300 calorie surplus, 300 to 500 calories. I'd say start at 300 and then bump it up maybe by 50 or 100 a day until 500. You really don't need more than 500 calories extra. But, I was tracking my calories, macros, everything. I was on my 500 calorie surplus and I still wasn't seeing the gains that I wanted, right? And in my head, I'm like, okay, I just need some sort of I'm just some sort of hard gainer. Maybe I miscalculated my base calories. Let's have more. But trying to increase past 4,000 calories was harder for me. So I was like, let's put in more protein shakes, let's get some carb drinks, let's grind some oats down, let's drink them. And I'm there just force feeding myself all this food, having in extra meals, getting in like 7 meals a day instead of 6. And I realized, I was bulking, but I was getting really fat at the same time. Like the flab was just pounded, coming on. And when you're gaining fat like that and you're gaining muscle, like you're getting stronger in the gym, you're not actually sure how much of it is fat and how much of it is muscle, right? And it's only when at the end of that bulk, when I came to a cut, honestly, one of the worst cuts in my life. Like I was strong, but I was like, let's cut this off. I realized how much fat I'd actually put on. And it wasn't until a year later when I really started experimenting with different training styles and, like I said, high intensity training, I realized the reason I wasn't gaining wasn't because I wasn't eating enough. It's because I was doing too much volume in the gym and not resting enough. So I feel like, most people, there's 2 mistakes that people are going to be making in the gym, right? It's you're either not training hard enough, right? And I think not training hard enough is kind of a little bit of bullshit, because nobody's training too hard. You can always train a bit harder, right? Or you're not resting enough, right? And my issue was I was in there and I was killing it every set. I know I was training hard. I was putting a lot of volume in, but then I was going to the gym 6 days a week, right? I just wasn't resting enough, right? And, you know, push, pull, split, hit everything twice a day. I realized for me it was, I just needed to rest longer, maybe do less volume, make it hard, keep the intensity there, reduce the volume. And then I realized, wow, even after 8 years of training, even when I'm weighing like 88 kilos, I mean, for everybody at home, I used to weigh 60 kilos when I started, so 28 kilos heavier. Even when I'm 28 kilos heavier, I realized I can sometimes gain muscle, even on a slight deficit, if I'm training hard enough and I'm resting enough. Obviously, your protein needs to be there, so you're right, you do need some sort of constant protein. But yeah, I'd say for people out there that are maybe thinking they're a hard gainer, they need to eat more. I'd say first make sure your protein is sufficient, and then work on your rest times.
So I recently mapped out in very clear detail, like what my dream life should look like. And it took a lot of work, because it makes you realize that we apply the filters on what our dream life should be. And these filters are expectations laid on us by society, by our parents, by our friends.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of like mental work to actually strip away all those filters and finally get to the core of what you really want. And I figured out what I finally want. I want to build like a compound with 4 or 5 houses. So I live together with like 4 of my close mates. And let's say there are 5 houses in this compound. And so we're all neighbors, and each house is a family. So I have my family and my kids and my wife in our house.
Yeah.
My mates will have the same.
Yeah.
And then we'll share like a giant garden with a nice barbecue area and a martial arts training area, maybe a swimming pool, lots of green grass.
Yeah.
And then we'd frequently take, trips in nature. So out to the mountains or drive off to the lakes, go camping, stuff like that. And basically it will be a very, very much a community, like a close-knit, tight-knit community of 5 guys leading our families and just absolutely balling. Like if one of us comes up with a business idea, we all go all in on that business idea, and we brainstorm and we leverage it. And we figure out how we can 10x the money as a team rather than if we were doing it solo.
So it's very much about a community for you, like living close to your friends.
Yeah, exactly.
Doing the same things with them.
It absolutely is. It's about being close to the people that matter to you and giving them the best life and enjoying the best life with them. It's kind of the story of the Mexican fisherman, right?
Tell me about that. I've not heard that story.
The story of the Mexican fisherman is there was a Mexican fisherman, and he lived a very simple life in Mexico. He'd go out, he'd take his little boat out, he'd go and catch a fish. He'd bring his fish back to shore, and he'd enjoy it with his family. And one time, an American tourist was passing through. He was on business, but he was on holiday. And he said to the Mexican guy, he said, "Why don't you catch more fish? You can sell them, get more money." And the Mexican fisherman said, "Why would I want more money? I've got enough fish for my family."
Yeah.
And the American, he said, "Well, you can sell it and get more profit." And the Mexican said, "Why would I want more profit?" "Well, then you can buy a bigger boat and you can catch more fish. And then once you've caught more fish, you can buy a huge boat, a giant fishing vessel, and then you can catch bigger fish and sell that for more money. And then you can own a whole fleet of boats, and you can control the fishing supply all along this coast.
Yeah.
And then you can be a CEO, and you can manage a big company and manage lots of fishing vessels, and you can have 1,000 people working under you, and you can catch tons and tons of fish every single day. And then you can go on the stock market and list yourself an IPO, and you can have a multi-million-pound company, and you will be the richest man in Mexico." And the Mexican fisherman said, "But what happens after that? What happens after that?" And the American said, "Well, after that, then you'll have enough money that you can go on holiday and take some time off and do the things that you love." And the Mexican fisherman, he said, "But then I would just be fishing again."
That's a really good story. I've heard a similar variant of it that my management tutor at Oxford taught me about, which is similar, but it was about visiting some island in the Caribbean, and the management consultants come in, and they tell the people you should be doing more. You could be more productive. You can have a manager and so on, and they're like, Anyway, the same thing. The long gist of the story is to make more money. Why? To be happy. Right? I think that's what a lot of people forget. It's like, especially now with hustle culture, you feel like you're in the game, you got to make more money, more money. And I'm not saying, you know, more money is bad. Money definitely can help. But ultimately, the thing most people want to buy with money is happiness. Right. So if you can take a shortcut there, or if you realize things that make you happy don't require money, you can get there. But keen to hear why you're thinking, like, you know, 3, 4, 5 friends living together in a community.
Why I feel that
yeah,
way.
yeah.
I feel like if you expand beyond 5, maybe the limit would be like 10 friends, but anything beyond that and it becomes too loose. You know, I want to keep the friendship very tight knit.
Okay.
Like a brotherhood.
Yeah.
Brotherhood and all helping each other. I also find that in bigger groups, you inevitably get drama. You get people that just aren't going to get along with each other. Whereas if you have 4 or 5 friends, it's quite easy to stay on the same page about things as long as you go into it on the same page about things.
Yeah.
As long as you have its core vision, as long as you share the core vision, small things are not going to get in your way. You can iron out the creases here and there as long as they share your core vision. And that's easier with a small team of people, a small group of friends. I think now that I've detailed out what my dream life is, everything I do now just leads to that.
Okay, so it's giving you some clarity.
It definitely has. You know, I picture myself doing this in southern Spain, or somewhere sunny. I'm moving to Spain at the end of this year.
Okay.
I'm moving to Malaga.
Nice.
In October. I'm going to start my life out there. First day, I'm going to do my advice that I gave out to my viewers in my first video, which is build up my inner circle. So I'm going to immediately hit the BJJ gym, the kickboxing gym. I'm going to meet some absolute killers there. Yeah. And among those killers, there's going to be some friends, you know, and people that I make connections with. Yeah. And I will say, to that point, you make connections far faster in a martial arts setting than anywhere else I've seen.
Why do you think that?
The reason for that is because men bond under pressure. Men bond deepest and fastest in dangerous situations or situations where they are relying on each other. Okay. So you see these deepest bonds where you see it in the military and you see it in martial arts gyms. Because if you're going out, let's say you're a soldier, right? Me and you are soldiers, we're out fighting a war. If we come back from a tour of Afghanistan or something, you will have probably saved my life on multiple occasions, and I yours. So that's a deeper bond than you would get nowadays in the West, where we might have just been clubbing or, you know, chatting business or having a beer and a coffee here and there. But if you actually go out there and you're in a war zone, or if you're in a martial arts gym, if we're sparring and I can see that you're someone that's level-headed and we can actually like train very well together and put each other in dangerous situations without being actually in danger. Yeah. You develop a very deep bond very fast.
Okay. That's interesting. No, you said about like relying on each other. Is this because you've just been fighting other people, like sparring with other people? Do you have to rely on each other when you're doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
You do, because the positions that you're in, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is very much about chokes and like limb manipulation. You know, a submission is basically someone trying to break your arm and you tapping and saying, no more. Okay. You know, release it. Yeah. I give up, basically. And if you're in a rear naked choke, which is one of the fundamental chokes of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you've probably seen it on TV or in a street fight video. Someone has their arm behind the neck. They're choking, trying to choke the other person unconscious. If you're with your buddy and he just holds on that choke for 7 seconds, you're out. Yeah. Asleep. Yeah. Unconscious. So you're trusting this guy not to do that. You're trusting this guy.
Okay, I see what you mean, right? Yeah. Like you're trusting them to honor the submission. Exactly. And to not put you in too much harm.
That's exactly it. You're trusting a guy, you're letting him do a move that could kill you, that could kill a person, and you're trusting him not to do it, not to take it to that level. And if you do that repeatedly, 50 times a session, and then do that 3 times a week, and extrapolate that over a year, you build a very, very deep connection with these guys. Yeah. I already feel like quite close to the guys that I train with because we're putting each other in arm bars and chokes and stuff that is extremely dangerous and high adrenaline. But I got to tell you, Naz, there's no greater feeling than finishing that BJJ class. The amount of adrenaline that is surging and coursing through my veins is unreal. It's like you walk out the gym and you're floating. You're on a high. Yeah. It's truly a great feeling. So I would recommend it, even once in your life, to try a jiu-jitsu class.
Yeah, for me, I just, prefer looking like I can win a fight than actually being able to win a fight. I did consider it seriously at one point. Like I live across from London. Shoot Fighters is like a big fighting gym, but the chance of getting injured is so high, and that would wreck my bodybuilding for a few months. I just don't want to risk it.
So for you, bodybuilding is like number one.
Yeah, but a mix of like bodybuilding and powerlifting. I flick between the two because sometimes I might want to break a new PR. In which case I'll do like a powerlifting cycle, and then I want to get a bit bigger. I'll do a bodylifting cycle. But for me, it's that I guess you kind of have this in sparring as well. But what I like about it, especially powerlifting, is it can be very objective, and you can constantly keep beating yourself, right? Like, hey, I benched like 120, last year, and now I'm benching 140, right? Like, you can actually level up. What's it like that? What is there anything like similar in fighting? Like, obviously you can spar with a person and beat them, but then they could beat you. Like, how do you know you're progressing?
That's a good question. So in jiu-jitsu, the belts, you've got the belt system, which is a clear way, white belt, blue belt, black belt. It's a clear way of seeing where your progress is.
Yeah.
In kickboxing, it's not so clear because there isn't a belt system in Muay Thai.
Yeah.
Those guys just gauge their ability based on their fight record. So they will actually go and fight. And do you win or do you lose your fights?
Yeah.
That's how people are measuring themselves.
But what I like about that, kind of like with powerlifting, is it's absolute, right? Like, you won the fight.
Right.
Versus like maybe you're a brown belt or a black belt and you don't train for 2 years. Are you still a black belt?
That's very true. You got to keep up with these things. You got to keep up with these things. People do get demoted in the belt system.
Oh, really?
Or people will switch gyms and give up the belt that they're on to go down a belt level out of respect for their new coach. To say, I haven't been training under you. I haven't reached this belt under you. I give up this belt. So I'll go from a brown belt to a purple belt, but I'm prepared to earn that brown belt back as long as you feel that I've earned it, as long as you feel that I'm of that level.
So in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, do you have any like actual competitions? Obviously, you see people on UFC, but if you're a guy going down the gym, so I guess if you're an amateur boxer, you're having boxing fights. If you're a kickboxer or Muay Thai, you're having fights, right? Like, what's it like with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
Yeah, in Jiu-Jitsu, those guys compete a lot. There are a lot of competitions. I'm hoping to compete soon.
Okay.
A lot of my guys at my gym, shout out KO Combat Academy. A lot of those guys competing today.
Yeah.
I've just seen my instructor, Bob. He pulled gold medal.
Oh, wow.
In his championship tournament. So, yeah, they compete a lot in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm interested by something you said a moment ago, that you don't want to do martial arts because powerlifting and weightlifting, bodybuilding takes center stage.
Yeah.
What if you were to try martial arts and really fall in love with it, and that would become your new passion?
I mean, if I fell in love with it, I mean, for sure, I've fallen in love with it, I would do it. For me personally, I just don't think I like it. I've not tried, I tried a little bit of boxing when I was a kid, but way before I started lifting, I used to be a pretty semi-competitive cyclist. Actually competitive, but like almost semi-pro cyclist. Pretty serious with my cycling. I put in like at least 20 hours a week, so 20 to 30 hours a week. We're talking like that's a minimum 3 hours a day per day cycling. And then I would do 2 races a week, and a race could, one of the races would be about 40 people, and we would race for about 2 hours. Another one would be like anywhere between half an hour to 45 minutes in a time trial. So I was racing a lot. And I just did not enjoy doing that much cardio. Like, for me, it was, and I took it seriously. I think one of the reasons I didn't enjoy it is because I took it so seriously. It was like, how can I maximize every minute I'm on the bike? So I would never just go for a leisurely cycle. It'd always be, these are the intervals I got to do, or this is the distance, this is the how many watts I'm putting out, or target heart rate, or whatever else. And it made me very good at racing. Like, I got pretty good pretty quickly, but I didn't enjoy doing it. And then since then, I couldn't really find any other sport. I don't like team sports as much because it's not as objective, right? Like in cycling, though a team is a big part of it when you race, you know where you place. Like when I win a race, I won the race. Right? Versus some team sports, you don't know why the team lost, right?
Did you win a few races?
Yeah, overall I won about between about 12 and 15 races while I was racing.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, I don't know anything about the cycling world.
Yeah.
Are there different divisions? Or
Yeah. So there's different divisions. So you start in the UK, there'll be the main like weight is ranked is by categories. So you'll start in category 4, and then if you win enough races, you'll bump up to category 3 and 2 and 1. And like I would do some regional races in Sheffield that aren't by that category system. It's a different system, but it's essentially the same thing. It's like you start in a group, and then once you've won enough races or placed quite highly, you move up to the next group where obviously people are a lot, people take it more seriously and a lot faster. So for me, it was, at the end of it, I remember one time I'd won like the equivalent to like a category 1 race. And I'd won that race. My dad had picked me up. I came home and I felt great, right? Got off the bike, absolutely exhausted. And I'm there getting changed. And my mom, who's like making tea in the other room, just like comes in to get something and just like nonchalantly says, "Oh, you look like you're a heroin junkie." She looks at my body and I'm so skinny and I'm wiry and everything. And I'm just like, I know she didn't mean it, but I'm just like, "Oh, thanks, Mom." I've just won this race and I've got absolutely nothing to show for it. And that's when I realized, like, I'm putting in 20, 30 hours a week of something that I just do not enjoy. Why am I killing myself doing this? Why? Because I'm just I'm ambitious and competitive by nature. But it's an example of where it was actually to my detriment. So after I won that race, I did not sit on a bicycle of any sort. It's not even a Boris bike for more than 2 years. Right? I just gave it up.
Not even a Boris bike, ladies and gentlemen.
Bike.
Damn. I like that story. That's impressive. So you won a few races. You said Division 1.
Yeah, the equivalent of category 1. Yeah, again, it depends on like who's in the races. They weren't, because sometimes some like actual pros will race in category 1. There weren't any like actual pros in the race.
When you say actual pros, like Mark Cavendish.
Yeah, people like that, people who actually get paid, who are part of a team. You might see them in Tour de France or on the other tours. They'll compete in category 1, or a lot of the people in category 1 would be just before they're going to go pro. So they have some like local sponsorships. They need to make a name for themselves before they get picked up by like a really big team.
Nice.
So yeah, that's what you see there.
It's very high level.
Yeah.
Very high level. You raised an important point though. Cardio is hated. Globally, it's hated. People don't like doing cardio. And I don't think that's the issue. People just haven't found the cardio that they enjoy.
Yeah, I think that's it, yeah.
Because I keep talking about jiu-jitsu, but jiu-jitsu is great fun. The actual process, the flow of jiu-jitsu and rolling and chokes, submissions is great fun, and it is the hardest cardio I've ever done. And I've done Muay Thai.
So how is, just sorry to cut you off, how is it different from something like boxing, right? Because I'm thinking, I know friends who, didn't get into boxing because they just don't want to get hit in the face, right? Which is a very valid concern. How is BJJ different from something like boxing?
Firstly, if the person that doesn't do boxing because they don't want to get hit in the face, they're not going to enjoy jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
They're not going to enjoy any martial arts. So they should stay at home and sit on their sofa and stay comfortable.
Okay.
And watch Rick and Morty, all right? Because they ain't going to ever survive in an actual gym requiring some toughness. The problem with boxing gyms is they do hard sparring from like day one. I've stepped in 2 or 3 boxing gyms, and even the beginners were throwing haymakers at each other's.
Yeah.
There was a complete disregard for like the brain health. Boxing coaches seem to give no regard to brain health. Whereas if you go into a kickboxing gym, those guys are like, take it very, very light to the head. They might say, go really easy on the head kicks, go really easy on punches to the head, but you go full power to the body and full power on those kicks to the legs. Because you want to condition the body. We're not trying to avoid violence here. This is a fight simulation, sparring. But we're also looking for longevity. A lot of the guys out in Thailand, because they start fighting at 8, 9, 10 years old, they'll have 400 fights by the time they reach 25.
Wow, 400.
400. So they can't be training as if, hard sparring. They can't be doing hard sparring and then fighting, because they won't have a break. They'll be like Muhammad Ali, unfortunately, by the age of 30, 35. Unable to speak properly, unable to move properly. You don't want that. If you're doing martial arts, be very, very careful with your head. And to answer your question about jiu-jitsu, you get put in tough situations, but there's no really hits to the head. There are chokes and there are submissions. The thing about being careful in jiu-jitsu, like I said, is tap if you feel your shoulder is going out of place or your knee is getting twisted. I would say do not hold on to those and try and wriggle something out of it unless you know the technique to get out of it. because then it's a game changer.
Yeah. So see if you can try and explain to somebody like me who absolutely hates hard physical cardio. What is it about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for you that made you fall in love with it?
It's the adrenaline feeling of it. It's the adrenaline afterwards. It's a very humbling experience. Because I walk in the gym and all the guys there, they look like normal guys in the street, but they could all kill me, right? So it really flips. If anyone out there has this idea that they're a big tough muscle guy and no one can touch them, you walk into a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym, spend a week there, and that idea that you have will get flipped on its head. Because now some of these guys, they might be like they look like your average uncle walking down the street, but they could put a person in a knee bar faster than anything. So it's really, really, firstly, impressive to see normal people able to do that level of sports. The other thing is the companionship. Any martial arts gym, the companionship is unrivaled. That I've never seen anywhere else. As people are so close, people support each other in fights. You know, you might have guys that train together. One of them will go and fight in a local competition, and his mate, who also trains with him, will be his corner man. He'll be in his corner in the ring for the breaks, you know, like toweling him down, pouring water over his head, pouring water when he needs a drink, getting him ready for the fight. So that's a very close bond that you see there.
Yeah.
And thirdly, with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it's what have we talked about? We talked about the adrenaline. We talked about
the camaraderie.
And there's another point I want.
What makes the cardio bearable?
The cardio becomes bearable because you're not thinking about the cardio.
Okay.
Because you're trying to survive.
Okay.
It's adrenaline, and that's carrying you. It's almost like cardio without effort.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. If we're doing a rolling session, I'm heavy panting. You know, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
But you're not feeling this pain of the cardio. Your only focus is, how do I survive and submit this other guy? And so it's kind of an enjoyable form of cardio.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that actually, because like I have one of those Whoop trackers that, you know, you put on your arm or your wrist and it measures your heart rate. And for me, one of my dreams has always been to like be able to consistently perform a backflip just from a floor. So last year I picked up doing it again. I went to gymnastics, and like, man, when you're doing backflips, you kind of don't realize, because all I'm thinking about is, okay, let's not land on my neck. Don't land on my neck. Just do the backflip. But you don't realize how actually physically taxing it is. Like, I go back and I look at my Whoop, and my heart rate is well over 170 for most of it. I think I spent like, it's crazy. Like in a 1 hour session, I spent more than 20 minutes above 80% max heart rate, which is crazy. But I didn't feel like I was doing it. And I guess that's part of it. As I'm jumping around on trampolines or trying backflips, I'm not thinking about the physical pain as though maybe if I was on a treadmill, you know, in a basement gym somewhere, running into a wall as fast as possible. So yeah, I kind of see that now. I've had experience of that.
Yeah, I think people need to find the cardio that's so enjoyable for them. It's not even cardio anymore.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel like cardio.
Yeah.
What's that for you? Would you say that's?
I'm gonna go the other way, and I'm gonna say, well, what's the point of cardio? All right, like cardio is like Spanish or for something like
cardiovascular.
Cardio, yeah. No, I'm joking. I think like it's really tough. So in bodybuilding, cardio is important for two things. One, heart health is very important, because when you have a lot of muscle, it's taxing on your heart. So you want to keep your heart health up. And then secondly, cardio can be used to help lose weight. It's not the main thing to do. And like when I talk to my coach, he's like, we are definitely not starting with cardio. We're going to put cardio right at the end if you need it. And when I'm on a bulk, like I said, minimal cardio. So cardio doesn't really play into bodybuilding that much. However, we do want to keep our hearts healthy. And it turns out you can actually keep your heart very healthy by just doing really high intensity intervals. So I will do once a week, I will do intervals where I'm doing like 20 seconds on the bike, like indoor bike, full pelt, max, all out, then 40 seconds of recovery, 20 seconds all out, 40 seconds of recovery. I'll do that 8 times. It takes me 8 minutes, and I'm good. And I realize I have decent cardio for like sprinting upstairs and doing other things. Like I'm pretty healthy from just that. But yeah, I'm not putting the hours in like I would be on a bike or anything else. So it's funny. I'm going to go and climb Ben Nevis again in a couple of weeks. So we'll see how my cardio is there. But yeah, going back to my original like question, like why cardio?
That is a good question. Why cardio? I feel good after cardio personally.
Yeah, the endorphins.
The endorphins,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
Also, being able to sweat things out. I think our bodies have very natural ways, processes that need to happen often. One of them is sweating, which brings me to another question. Do you ever use saunas and steam rooms in your?
Sauna when I can, I really enjoy and I really like.
Yeah.
Just to go back to what you said, like I get you about the endorphins. Like I think if you are somebody who's like me and is doing bodybuilding, who doesn't break a sweat in the gym and you know you don't do a lot of cardio, that is one thing that you are missing out on, which is you're not getting that endorphin release. Like sure, I can meditate in the gym. I feel like I'm pushing. I feel very strong, but I don't get the same release as if I was cycling or running. So you know, you made me think there that maybe I do want to start putting a little bit of cardio in. I might take up swimming or running or something. But yeah, going back to saunas, when I can, if I have access to one, I will do it. How about yourself?
I do try and do sauna twice a month.
Okay, twice a month. Why is that?
So every couple of weeks, I feel like over time, we build up toxins in our body naturally.
Okay.
Whether that be crap from our diet, that's stuff that food companies have added to our food.
Yeah.
Whether it be plastic that's getting into our diet or through our clothing.
So I'm going to cut you off here because you know what I'm going to say to this, right?
Tell me.
That all of this is complete bullshit because your body is extremely good at removing toxins. If it wasn't, we would be dead. And there's a lot of people who are like, I'm going to go on a detox diet, or I'm going to eat a certain type of food to detox me, or I'm going to sweat the thing out. Like if you look into the actual science behind this, it's a lot of bollocks. Like your body is extremely efficient. Like just to give you an example, right? Stupid example. Like for example, you consume psychedelics, right? You consume a drug, something that should not be in your body.
Right.
Your body gets rid of it extremely efficiently, extremely quickly. You take any other sort of poison, your body will get rid of it extremely quickly. If not, it's going to build up in the liver, like some things like that are mercury, but then you see it in mercury poisoning, right? Like it becomes something that you notice. There are the idea of like having a detox diet. Like I'm not sure exactly for saunas, but I'm going to guess. I know for certain with detox diets, there is a lot of bullshit. People think there's something's accumulated in your body, you need to get it out. It's like, no, the human body's evolved over, like at least in humans for like 1 million years. It is exceptionally good at getting toxins out of the body. So things don't just hang around or stick around. Unless they're deliberately being engineered to stick around, they tend not to. So again, I don't know the science for saunas and sweating it out, but I'm going to guess it's a healthy dose of bullshit. But
that's interesting.
This is not a perspective
I've been exposed to recently, so I'm very much open to it.
Yeah.
Saunas, I'd like to see. So after a sauna, I feel very clean.
Yeah.
But based on what you've said, that could be
it's either placebo or like it could just be that you actually do feel clean, right? Other things happen, like your body salt fluctuation is gonna vary massively. Other things you've now been heated up, so it could just be that you, like many people, do feel clean after a sauna, and then people began to sort of post-rationalize this. Oh, I feel clean. Oh, I must be detoxing my body, right? Like a lot of people have said, when you have a cold, oh, you just need to sweat it out. Right? And it's like, it's only half true. It's like, no, it's not the sweating it out that is helping you recover from a fever. It's the fact that you are putting your body at higher temperature so that virus or bacteria that is causing you the fever cannot replicate as quickly because it doesn't perform well at higher temperatures. So that's why sweating it out works. It's not the sweating, it's the fact that your body's elevating its temperature, but people think it's coming out in the sweat because they just don't understand the science. So I guess there is something like there's probably a reason why people think this, but I'd say to look into it. It's something like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Why do you like it specifically for cardio?
So I have ADHD. I have hyperactive type ADHD. So I like things that move very fast.
Okay.
I like very dynamic situations. And I find that BJJ really puts you in very dangerous situations where you need to think quickly. Does my arm go here or here? Does my leg go this side of his head or that side of his head to get the leg lock? And that kind of speed is where my brain really calms down and feels really relaxed. All outside noise just gets shut down and it's really meditative, being in the moment. Being in a moment that's so fast and flowing so quickly and there's so many changing variables because you're literally rolling, he's moving, you're moving. You're seeing different positions from your partner every few seconds even. The ADHD brain is really fast at processing those fast-moving situations very quickly.
Oh, so you feel like it's not only you in your element, but you're actually playing to your strengths there with your ADHD.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I see a lot of ADHD people need to do this more often. There's kind of a culture of victimhood among the ADHD community.
What do you mean by that?
So I'm part of a couple of ADHD groups on Facebook. And it's constantly people posting that I hate my life, I can't do this, I can't do that. It's very much negative thinking. And they seem to just wallow in in their pity. And I think, are you actually doing any of the stuff that plays to your strengths? You could be doing a sport that actually complements you. You could be living your life and doing a job in a way that actually complements your ADHD. And so I'm very much a big proponent of the people with ADHD actually have a superpower that they can tap into if they were to leverage it correctly, rather than just allow inattention to wreak havoc on their life.
Yeah, it's good. It's important that you mention that actually. So I know what you mean about the victimhood mentality in ADHD. Like, just for reference, I have very strong combined ADHD, and the thing that you mentioned about superpowers or finding the thing that puts you in your element is a very important one, I think. It's only something that I was introduced to recently through working with my absolutely excellent ADHD coach, Jeff Copper. He's in the States. And he says when he works with people, what really helps with ADHD, because there is a lot of crap, right? There is a lot of shit that does happen if you have ADHD. You're being late for meetings, you forget, so you let people down, you accidentally break your word. You know, like, there is a constant amount of crap that you do have to deal with, right? But what Jeff says is, like, if you can find these things that put you in your element, or the type of business that you're naturally going to excel at because you like, or the specific area where you can then get hyper-focused and put huge amounts of time into, those are the things that kind of make life feel worth it. Because I feel like with ADHD, you spend so much time, you know, planning or organizing just to do the chorey stuff in life to make life manageable. You tend to forget that actually life, you know, there are things in life that make it feel worth it. But it sounds like BJJ is something like that for you.
BJJ is one of them. Muay Thai is another one. You know, having someone trying to hit you in the head and simultaneously trying to dodge that and land a kick of your own is fantastic. I feel like in business, you've very much leveraged your ADHD in a way that works because you love learning and you found ways to gamify learning so that you use your ADHD to learn skills very quickly and then apply them to business and make money.
Yeah, I'd say, like, I've always known that I've loved learning, but it's the then thinking, well, how can I apply this, you know, in a job? So before I started businesses, it would be when I was in a job, I would just think, you know, maybe I could suggest something to my manager about, you know, how maybe I could take an extra track. I'll try a new project where we try a new programming language, or I'll go and learn this thing, you know, hopefully en route to a promotion and so on. And I managed to, like, engineer the situation to, like, make it work. And at the same time, I think it's also important to understand things that you're naturally not good at. So, like, I know that I'm naturally not inclined to be managing loads of people for most of my day. If most of my day is managing people versus doing something technical, then I know I'm not going to enjoy it. So it's been, when I've been in business or in a company, to just engineer the environment so that I don't have to do that. It's not saying, no, I'm not going to manage people, or no, I'm not going to do the thing I hate. It's going to be having conversations with certain people and coming up with creative ways so that I can do less of that and more of the thing that I'm good at and more of the thing that brings value. Keen to hear your perspectives in, like, the sort of workplace in terms of how's your ADHD helped you or hindered you, and any advice you might have for people who are just finding out that they might have ADHD.
That's a really good point. Firstly, I really enjoy hearing your stories about how you leveraged your workplace to, you know, do learning by convincing your manager that you needed to learn or work on a new programming language for the product. That's pretty cool. Me personally, when I joined my latest team, we were doing a lot of meetings. It was like 8 hours of meetings a week.
Wow.
And I don't do well in meetings. Yeah. I find I switch off easily, or I find you might have 10 people in a meeting. Only 2 of them are actually talking to each other. And the other 8 are sitting there silent, camera off.
Wondering why the fuck am I here?
Exactly. Microphone off, playing doodle jump or whatever they're doing. So one of the first conversations I had with my team is, how do we cut down this number of meetings and make it more efficient? And we got those meetings. Everyone agreed. I got the whole team together on a call. We all agreed we could do with fewer meetings, and we got the number of meetings down to 3 hours per week from 8.
Wow, so more than half reduction.
More than a half reduction, and the meetings now are very fast paced and they're efficient. So I'm able to stay engaged as well. And my advice to people with ADHD is, firstly, find a job that works for you. Me and you have both been software engineers. I think that's a fantastic career for someone with ADHD.
Yeah, very fast feedback when you're programming. So if you're not very patient, programming is definitely something that you should look into for sure.
100%. Yeah, impatience is another thing. I'm very, very impatient, so I need a job like that. The other thing is working with people. I definitely prefer pair programming. To working solo.
Yeah, me too.
So I do like working with my colleagues, and find a job that works for you, and then leverage that job in a way that works even more for you. So go into software engineering and then cut the meetings. That's how you do it. You could probably apply this to finance, to crypto trading, whatever it may be.
Yeah, and what has been some of the difficulties then for you? I know you're talking about victimhood, but let's be real. There are actual negatives for people with ADHD. What are some of the sort of negatives that you've experienced, and then how do you try and deal with those?
That's a good question. I have quite a short fuse sometimes, or I'll jump to assumptions very, very quickly. I just don't really take into account like someone else might be busy or doing this and that, and I'll try and get a response like here and now, But people do stuff. People have their lives going on, and so it's just unrealistic for me to expect that.
Yeah, I do that, and the more kind people describe me as, they say, Naz is quite persistent. I think they want to use something a bit stronger than that. But yeah, I think that's a nice way of putting it. So yeah, I feel that. So one of the things with ADHD is, you get told you need to rein in certain parts of yourself, right? That means you need to have a morning routine. You need to go to bed on time. You need to organize and plan. And I mean, all of these things do help, and they are great. But it kind of feels like you're being restrained, right? So I'd love to hear your experience on where reining stuff in has helped you, but also what parts of your life or career you just let your ADHD go and it's been beneficial for you. So how do you balance that?
That's a really interesting point, because a lot of ADHD people do masking, where they will mask certain attributes and hide them from the world.
Okay.
And they will do that against their internal nature. And it's hard to know when you're masking and when you're just being more mature, because there's a lot of behaviors that we have as kids naturally growing up, running around, being crazy, singing on the bus and crying out, that you can't do as an adult.
Yeah.
So it's like, which of those behaviors should you actually be shutting down, and which of those should you not be suppressing because your natural personality? Firstly, I think it's an art finding which of those you should actually mask. But where do I feel constrained? I feel like sometimes I don't say stuff that I should be saying, or don't voice an opinion because I think people might get offended.
Yeah.
Or people just... I hear other people with ADHD post about this on Facebook, that they think they're annoying the people that they're around. They think they're being annoying to their friends and family if they say...
I think I get a little bit of that, in a sense that... But when I do get that, so for me, the feeling is sometimes, usually with neurotypicals, I'm talking and I get the feeling that maybe they're not as enthusiastic as I am, or they're getting a bit bored. And it's really hard to balance, because in your head, you're like, should I talk less to them? But then on the flip side, I'll be fully myself around a different set of people, or a different time, being the same way. And people are like, wow, like that's a story that they then go and tell their friends and so on. So it's like, it's not even that you have to pick your battles with be different around different people. Sometimes it's the same people, different environment. Yeah. So my take on that is, and this is the easy take, is like, I'm just gonna be me. And if I feel like I'm annoying people, I'm kind of just gonna let that thought flow. Like, not be a complete idiot and keep talking on and on, but I'm just like, okay, well, I didn't hit today with these people. We'll do it again next time.
What's it like for you? I think you're talking about a scenario I've faced where you get very enthusiastic about a topic, and you might go talking for it about like a minute or 2 minutes. You're
No
just
break,
flowing, no
yeah.
break. You're talking, and your friend will be like nodding their head at the right moments, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, they're really interested.
Yeah.
And you finish this amazing point that you've made, and they just like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just an okay.
So it's funny. I've had that many a time, but one thing I've learned to realize is it doesn't mean a no. It means a not right now. Right? It's kind of like when you're going for a kiss with a girl, you know, and she kind of moves away. It doesn't necessarily mean a no. It just means not right now.
Not right now.
Right? And it's just because like sometimes we forget, or at least for me, it's easy to forget that this person's had a really long day and they've just come in, or actually they just came in for a cup of tea or like a 2-minute chat and I've gone deep into something about quantum mechanics that I've learned or something else, you know? So yeah, I tend not to like let it weigh down on me too much.
Yeah. I think we get, with ADHD, we get caught in the trap of thinking our context or our frame of mind is shared by all the people around us. So like you said, you might walk in and your friend or family member might come home from work and you will be so deeply, passionately researching quantum physics for the last 2 hours. You assume that everybody you encounter might have been doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And is ready to have this full-on conversation. I get exactly the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, even on the flip side, just it's not always quantum mechanics. You know, the other day I saw a history of the great Kimbo Slice on YouTube.
R.I.P.
And R.I.P. Kimbo. And then I went over to my girlfriend, Dana, and, you know, I was super enthusiastic. I'm like, Dana, you need to watch this history lesson. Like, you need to be part of this. Let's watch the history of Kimbo Slice as it happened, you know, from the beginning to the UFC to the downfall, right? And weirdly, she was not interested at all.
Can you believe it?
I know, cannot fucking believe it. Right? And like, that was a heavy blow. It was like one of the blows that Kimbo took when he fought that policeman for 30 minutes nonstop. Like, it was hard. But I took it on the chin, went down, finished the history on my own.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, a little bit alone, but you know. But yeah, so, you know, sometimes what I'm trying to get at is sometimes your enthusiasm for something isn't shared by the people you're talking to, but it doesn't mean that they don't like you. It's just that, hey, they just don't share it, or they're not sharing it in that moment.
That's true. And those moments can feel a bit brutal, but because us with ADHD, we have RSD. You know, rejection sensitive dysphoria.
Yeah.
Where just like tiny, infractions feel way worse to us.
Yeah, like I get that as well. It's like, it's very easy to blow something up into a big rejection. Right? It's like, oh, you said no to this, or oh, you said yes, but it wasn't a really enthusiastic yes. You know, like I'm gonna take it the wrong way. I find with that sort of stuff, again, self-awareness, understanding that it's going to feel bad, but that's normal. Just let that thing slide and sort of move on. Though on that, one thing that you got me thinking about is I know both of us meditate regularly. How has meditation helped you? Do you want to talk more about how you think meditation could be beneficial?
Meditation
people with
is
ADHD.
a game changer. It's truly a game changer. The mind of someone with ADHD, particularly hyperactive ADHD, the mind is a pinball machine. It is thoughts racing. For my first 25 years of life, I thought that was the default. I thought this is just how life is. 1,000 thoughts racing day and night. You know, I'd go to sleep, my head would hit the pillow, but I wouldn't be asleep. It just the thoughts just keep racing.
Yeah.
And then during the lockdown in 2020, I read a book called The Mind Illuminated.
Fantastic
book. Very interesting book, and basically a guide to meditation. And I began implementing the guide and meditating every single day. I think for a total of 40 minutes a day, 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the evening. And I found something amazing happen. Like, these crazy pinballing thoughts were now very, very calm, and they kind of floated away. And so whereas I would describe my mind before as a stormy sea, now it was a calm lake, and I could see the reflection of the sky off the water. And it was a fantastic feeling. And this feeling translated to everything else I was in. It was my conversations with friends. I was more focused. When reading a book, I was able to read for longer and maintain focus. And so I would say that meditation is harder for people with ADHD in the beginning.
For sure.
Because you have so many distractions trying to pulling you away. But if you stick with it, it will be far more beneficial for you than for a neurotypical person, because you now have the focus from the meditation and the infinite energy that ADHD gives you.
That's a very good point, because just on that point, like I was trying to explain to a friend of mine he doesn't have ADHD, but he's one of those people who, by his own words, really isn't in the zone. Like he kind of is quite distracted all the time. Even when he's talking to you, he'll zone out. And he tried a bit of meditation, and he tried it for a bit and he didn't stick with it. But his frustration was, well, why should I be doing meditation? What are the benefits you see? Like me and you will talk about how your mind goes silent and so on. But for people out there, maybe with really strong ADHD, maybe people who've tried meditation once or twice and the thoughts did not stop, what are the real benefits? Like, what can they hope to gain by engaging in meditation and powering through?
Okay, so I'm going to tackle this from two angles: the benefits and reduction of the negatives. So the benefits we know are being calmer, less anxiety, being more present in every moment. And on the flip side, there is reducing the negatives. So when I began my meditation journey, I was addicted to Facebook. You know, anytime I should be doing a task like writing an essay at university or learning JavaScript so I could get a coding job, I would have some tab open on Facebook, scrolling through pointless crap. And as you know, content is infinite. So that just goes on forever. There's no end. Now, when I started meditating, I would, go and sit at my desk coding, and I would open a tab on Facebook and scroll. And after about 2 minutes, I'd catch myself and I would close the Facebook tab and get back to the task. Now, 10 minutes later, my mind, it happens again. Tab open, because I had the damn shortcut down. It was like Command T, F, Enter. Yeah. New tab on Chrome. F,
you're just doing Facebook. It on autopilot.
You're bloody
on there. Yeah.
Exactly. It's muscle memory of unproductive shit.
Yeah.
And so the second time it happened, the tab was open for like 30 seconds, and then I caught myself doing it. And then back to coding. 10 minutes go past, and Command T, F, Enter. Yeah, my hands are doing the freaking shortcut without me even thinking about it. This time, I only had the tab open for 5 seconds, but I was mindful. Oh, I got to catch myself now. So I closed that tab. The next 5 minutes later, the urge to open Facebook comes again. I open the tab and immediately close it. Next time, I catch the thought of opening Facebook. Give it a week, you're not even thinking about Facebook.
Yeah, I think that's actually really, really powerful. One of that benefit of meditation, which is to actually observe yourself. And I'll go out on a limb and say, like, if you have not meditated before, like if you've not meditated or tried it, you actually don't know what this feels like. Like there's a lot of science and studies out there to show that basically, as humans, we are just like animals in terms of the amount of automatic, repetitive behaviors we do. Right? The fact that you go home and you might sit down on your sofa, or you open up Facebook or YouTube or something instantly, even just checking your emails or your WhatsApps, right? Most of what we do is automatic and programmed. And I'm not just talking about the bad stuff, even the good stuff. We're just creatures of habit, and most things you do without thinking. But until you've actually meditated, and what I mean specifically is when you're meditating, you get to observe your thoughts. Like you said, you get to actually see the thoughts as they're arising, but not engage with them. Then you actually start feeling like you have some control. You realize, I'm not just on autopilot. Yes, the thoughts might be on autopilot. They seem to come from nowhere and I can't control them. But if I can catch them before they then turn into actions, like I'm now in the wedge between thought that I can't control, action that I can control. I'm in the middle, and now that's a great sense of power. But I feel like if you've never meditated, you don't actually know what that feels like. And some people might call this self-awareness or being more mindful. But yeah, it's a really beneficial thing. I think that's a great point.
I think that's interesting. Would you say that the mind without meditation is just out of control? It just follows whatever impulses?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, like, think of it like this, right? If you don't meditate, you then act out your thoughts as they happen, right? Some of you may filter, but that's, again, it's a natural filter. Like you think, oh, I want to eat, I want to eat some chocolate. And then you'll think, oh, no, I'm on a diet, right? Both the thought of eating chocolate and the thought of being on a diet were just reactions, right? So if you're somebody who doesn't observe your thoughts, as we learn in meditation, can't actually be controlled. They arise naturally. So if you're somebody who can't see them for what they are, and then take a step back from them, the thoughts are arising naturally and you're acting on them. So therefore everything you do is kind of arising naturally. There's no control in there. Like to give you an example of this, right? The difference between somebody who meditates and somebody who doesn't. Let's say you don't meditate, or like Naz of, let's say 6-7 years ago, I would get into a heated argument with somebody, let's say over something minor, and then the argument would end, we'd go our separate ways. And as I would be walking away, I would be thinking about all the things that I wish I said or I should have said or how they're right and so on. And that would just go on and on and on. And the only time that would stop would be at some random point in the future when somehow my brain, for whatever reason, decided to let it go or something else happened to me, right? I wouldn't actually realize that I got caught up into it and could stop it. So to give you a counter example, Naz now have the same petty argument, but then I come away and I'll be thinking about what I said, but then I will catch myself like you did with the thought.
Right.
I will realize, no, I am wondering about this way too much. It doesn't matter, it's happened. And then I can just choose to just ignore the thoughts. And I'll do that for a little bit and the thoughts will stop coming. But the difference is I have the power of when to give it up and return back to my normal state versus the old Naz that would have no power and it would just end whenever it ended.
That's right. You can choose if you want to continue that crazy argument, the thought pattern. It's like you can choose to follow negative patterns of thinking because they can be like fun and addictive to like play out certain scenarios in your mind.
Yeah.
But at least that's a choice that you make.
Yeah.
I really like the analogy you give as well of being the wedge between the thought happening and the action that follows it, and that you're there in the middle deciding whether the thought translates to action.
Yeah. One analogy that I like is kind of like, you get spam email, right? And you can kind of, usually when you read the subject of an email, you can tell if it's spam. Somebody telling you want a load of like Bitcoin that you need to claim. Like, you're not going to click on that email, right? And it's kind of like when you're a meditator, you kind of see your thoughts by just reading the subjects. They arise and you read the subject and you can then choose whether you want to click on it and read it. So if it's spam, I'm not going to click on the email and read the email. Well, the equivalent of that is then engaging in the thought that you have, right? That might be a bit of jealousy about, oh, my girlfriend's out with her friends. It might be somebody said this to me or he gave me a mean look or whatever it is. You can choose to engage with the thought or not. Yeah. Versus somebody who doesn't do that and they just read every single email and have to engage with everything that comes up in their mind.
Yeah, because you're going to ignore most of those emails, but now and then you want to enjoy a nice story about a Nigerian prince who offers you $1 trillion.
You do have the choice. Yeah.
Let's read through this one.
So Adam, you've been down various career paths. I know right now where you are, you really enjoy what you do and you're really good at what you do. Can you just give me a little bit more about how you found that journey and how you ended up finding the thing that you excel at and that you're good at and enjoy?
My ADHD definitely guided my career choices. So I remember my first ever career choice was investment banking because I watched the film The Wolf of Wall Street and thought, okay, this is going to be great. This is going to make the money. This looks fun. It was completely so detached from the reality of investment banking that when I was 15 years old and did, work experience at a bank in London. And it was I had to put on this uncomfortable, scratchy suit and get on the tube in the morning, and it was sweaty and it was boxed in.
There was no lines of coke at lunchtime or like hookers at the after party.
Exactly. There was no dwarf tossing. I thought that was a daily occurrence. So then I thought, okay, what job can I actually do with my ADHD? It has to be something outdoors. It has to be something involving physicality and movement. And that led me to being a scuba instructor.
Scuba instructor?
I was a scuba instructor in Queensland, Australia. Upon graduation, I flew out to Queensland and I was working on the Great Barrier Reef, taking people out scuba diving every single day.
That sounds like living the dream for most people if they're like just finishing uni or around that age.
It is very much a dream. It's extremely rewarding. You're in nature. You've got the feeling of the ocean on your skin, and the blue skies and the wind. And if you have ADHD, you're constantly interacting with people in a positive way. You're doing something physical. You're out swimming, with heavy equipment on. You feel great. You feel really great. And the idea of going back to a desk job sounds like hell.
Yeah.
When you're in an environment like that.
Yeah.
So I was there. Unfortunately, I couldn't extend my visa because they had taken, they changed the job skills list in Australia. They'd removed 50 jobs from the skills list for visas, and one of them was scuba instructors.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they said,
You got screwed by the system.
I got screwed by the system. They said, we don't need any more scuba instructors. But in order to stay in Australia, you can do 3 months working on a farm, and that buys you an extra year in Australia. And now my ADHD took me straight down that route, man. I ended up on a farm for like a year and a half.
What were you doing on the farm?
It was a banana farm. So it was like going under the trees, you know, carrying heavy loads of bananas, like 40 kilos
Wow.
on your shoulder and dumping them on a trailer. And I was doing a lot of driving tractors. You know, I didn't know that you could drift.
Wait, you can drive a tractor?
I can drift a tractor.
Wow.
I didn't know you can.
How hard is a tractor to drive in a normal car?
It's how hard is it? It's not too hard.
Yeah.
It's very fun.
Yeah.
I had a brand new Kubota tractor imported from Japan. It was
Wow.
a beautiful beast. It was the gear stick, funny enough, was on the right. It was on the right, so I got used to driving on the opposite side.
Yeah.
But once we banged a huge 5-ton trailer on the back of this thing, I was able to drift it, because I learned that if you just flick the wheel, if it was
Wait, so
muddy enough-
how old were you at the time?
I was 24 at the time.
Wow, so they just let a 24-year-old on some like brand new, God knows how much $100,000 tractor and let you just drift the trailer around the field. Does the farmer know you're doing this?
The farmer assigned me that job.
Wow.
The farmer. This was. I can speak. I will speak about this a lot more in the future.
Yeah.
But this was the biggest banana plantation in the southern hemisphere.
Wow.
7,000 acres.
Wow.
And I would take the fruit back to the packing shed, and then I would take the empty trailer and the tractor, and I would have to go and find the team again in the fields, and they were off in some mountain miles away. So I'm driving the tractor all day long. That was a fairly good life, I can't lie.
So what happened after the farm? What happened then?
After the farm work, I made my way back to the UK, and I thought, okay, UK, I don't like the UK. I need to be back in Australia. How can I do that as quickly as possible? And certain jobs, certain trades are very highly valued by the Australian visa system. One of them is electrician. So I began training to be an electrician. And then I thought, okay, no, this isn't going to work, because I'm going to have to do 4-year apprenticeship at £3.50 an hour.
Wow.
I would still be on it.
In your mid-20s, like, how are you going to find money to live? if you
Exactly.
have
I
to
would
work?
still be on it right now.
Yeah.
I'd be flat broke at 10% inflation that we're facing now. And so I said, I can't do this. Let me try something a bit more money, a bit more practical, like quantity surveying, because that's also in construction.
Okay.
So I looked at quantity surveying for a couple of weeks, but that was taking me too close to the desk job that I was trying to avoid with investment banking. And then I did a little trick to find out what your perfect career is. And I found software engineering would work for me.
Yeah.
And so I did a very basic course in software engineering, immediately fell in love with it, and realized, okay, this is something I could do for a few years.
Yeah.
And 3-4 years later, here we are today.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. What was the little trick, out of curiosity?
The little trick is, I didn't learn this anywhere. This is something I came up with. I got a piece of paper and I drew 3 circles on a piece of paper. One of the circles, like a Venn diagram, right? So they were overlapping. One of the circles is things I'm good at, like things I'm already good at. Another of the circles are things that I'm passionate about. So like animals, nature, connecting with people. Another of the circles was things that actually make money, jobs that actually make money, just listing them down. And another one was things that I actively enjoy. So kickboxing, running, stuff like that.
The things that don't make money.
Things that don't necessarily make money, just stuff that's enjoyable.
Yeah, yeah.
And I listed in as much depth as possible. I filled out every single circle with about 50 items.
Wow.
And then I looked at what was in the circle in the middle. Like what job could fill all 4 of those? And I saw that problem solving, technology, and software engineering made money. So software engineering ended up being the job that was in the middle.
Wow. So like a process of deduction, you figured out what's right for you.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Exactly. Yeah. I still have that piece of paper to this day.
Wow.
So yeah.
All right. Next time, maybe you can tell us about part 2 of that journey of how you became a software developer.
100%. I look forward to it.
Thank you, everyone. This has been Adam and Naz.
Thank you, guys.